Welcome to the Notorious Scoundrels, a Star Wars Legion podcast bringing you the latest news, general perspective, and competitive discussion.
Hello and welcome back to the Notorious Scoundrels podcast. I'm Kyle. I'm here with Jay and Tim, other Tim. What's up, gentlemen?
Besides you forgetting Tim's name there for a minute, you know, it's fine. He's not that important.
I didn't forget him. I was trying to figure out, given that we just had Tim Hannon from Stabcast on last week, how to differentiate, introduce him in a different way.
Yeah.
I should have thought about this more before the cast, because other Tim, you've been here, Tim. So I feel like other Tim should be Stabcast Tim.
Yeah.
But we'll come up with something.
I think we sound a little different.
Well, yeah, obviously.
You look different too. It's almost as if you're two different people.
Yeah, we have different levels of acclimation to snow.
That's true. He's about to get ready for his acclimation to snow as he just moved up here. So
yeah,
it's about to get real for him.
Yeah, we already have like 10 to 20 foot piles of snow in our parking lots already.
Meanwhile, it was 70 degrees this weekend here in DC. I took the kids to the playground.
Nice.
Anyway,
I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be a little maybe off tonight. I've had a weird day. I've had a real weird day, boys. I'm going to tell you why. So I know everybody at home loves hearing about Farmer Jay's adventures. Okay. So here's my newest adventure. So our oldest son went up to the family's camp to go hunting this weekend, and he got himself a deer. And yesterday when we picked him up, he brought the deer home, like in parts, not ready to be eaten, like still needed to be butchered. And so I called a friend of mine, and when I say friend, you guys need to understand that inside I'm like a 90-year-old man. So this is a 67-year-old man that I called, who's a friend of mine. And I said, hey, so you hunt and stuff? He goes, yeah. I go, you know how to clean and butcher deer? And he goes, yeah. I go, great. You want to come over and help me with that? And this was yesterday. He goes, yeah, I'll be over tomorrow. So at 5:30 a.m. he was calling the house, and he's like, hey, I'm in your driveway. You ready to get this going? I was like, I wasn't even up yet. My alarm goes off at 6:15. So I was like, well, yeah, man. And I came downstairs, got a cup of coffee, let him in, and he and I were butchering a deer until like 1:00 in the afternoon.
So, did you make your son help at least?
He had school, man.
Oh yeah.
No.
Okay. I feel like if you shoot a deer, you should also participate in the processing.
He absolutely would have. It was not he didn't want to.
Yeah. School is, I gotcha.
Yeah, he helped get it to that point, which I don't want to get in too much detail because it's not ideal. You guys probably know, but he got it so that the deer had, we got the like shanks and the legs and the the back straps and all that stuff. People who know about this will know what we're talking about. And so I used to do this with my dad when I was young, but I didn't remember any of it. And so I called this guy up, and boy, did it come back to me though. So I was, for the better part of half the day, I was, prepping deer meat, but we did have it for dinner and it was delicious. So but
venison is delicious.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. That's my life. So, yeah. I know everybody at home likes to hear about the chickens, which you won't hear about anymore because we ate them. But
I have determined personally that hunting for me is like kind of like a boat. You don't want to actually own the boat. You just want to have a friend with a boat.
Yep.
So hunting is like, I don't want to actually do the hunting or the processing. That's what they technically call it, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to do any of that. But I will happily eat the deer meat.
Yeah.
That's Just bring me some deer meat. I'll pay you for it if you want.
I don't know. I don't want to get too deep into it, but I really like, we try to buy as much of our meat from local farms. So like our chickens clearly were ours. So that's where we got our eggs, and any chicken or turkey or cow, pig, like any of that stuff we try to get locally. Because I just like knowing more about the source of my food. Like it's just an interesting and like, I don't know, maybe better for my soul overall that I like know where where those animals are coming from. So like being part of this was really special, and I did as much work as it was nice to know, like, oh yeah, this came from the camp, and this, he shot it and now it's here, and and we're taking care of this, and it's just, I don't know, there's something about that that's kind of interesting. So I say that now, that I'm done, but definitely in the middle of it, I was like, I'm never doing this again. This this is a nightmare. This is a nightmare. But anyways, adventures in Farmer J. There's your update, everybody.
I just got fully Canadian. I'm nursing a slight shoulder injury because I got rifled with a puck while reffing 2 nights ago. It was
reffing hockey.
reffing hockey.
Yeah.
It was shot all the way down the ice because they were on the PK, and I saw it coming, and was like, "Well, I can't get out of the way," so I just tucked, so it wouldn't hit me in the face. I just caught it on my shoulder. Yeah, that's all good.
Did I remember? Yeah, when I was young in high school and college, I played lacrosse, and just like after taking a lacrosse ball, oof, it's almost the same as hockey, right? And you get this huge welt and bruise, and you're just like, well, that's gonna hurt for a while. So
yeah, well, and I'm a little crazy in that I don't wear any padding when I ref, and and this was a JF1 beer league games. Like most of these guys that were playing like university hockey or major junior like 2 or 3 years ago. So I've just accepted I'm gonna like take a puck every like 10 to 15 games, and it'll hurt for a while, but whatever.
Good man. That's what I like to hear.
It's all those bee stings just makes you like, immune to pain.
Immune.
Yeah, sure. That sounds right.
Yeah, high pain tolerance.
Yeah.
Anyway, we aren't going to talk about Legion today. We're also going to not talk about Legion today, because we have something that's Legion adjacent, so to speak. Unless you've been living under a rock, is a thing that exists apparently. So we'll get to that. We're going to talk about Invader League also, and slightly related, we're going to talk about, last week we talked a fair bit about Blizzard Force. So this week, Turnabout is fair play. We're going to talk about countering Blizzard Force. So let's get to housekeeping first.
Oh, that's me. Yeah, right. Listen, Patreon, that's a thing you could do. So I talk about that a lot. So I'm just gonna move on. Last week we told you guys about a sale we're having. We're doing 30% off Legion and 30% off order tokens. So a lot of those have sold out, but hey, there's still some in stock, so you guys can check that out. And other
Hang on,
stuff.
while you're talking, I'm sorry, I'm gonna go order some Blizzard Force order tokens.
Oh, God. Yeah, and so check out the store, check out all our tools. That's it. That's all I got for this week. We're gonna have a very special announcement. You guys, if you're on our Facebook page, you're gonna see it tomorrow, and then next week we're gonna talk about it. I'm not gonna get into it right now, but you'll see it on on all our social media tomorrow. So keep an eye out, or today. If you're listening to it, it's today. Tomorrow for us, because we're recording on Monday. So that's it. That's all I got. Are you actually getting those?
I was, but I will do it later because that was an exceptionally efficient housekeeping.
Yeah, thanks.
I have so many order tokens. I don't need more, but those Blizzard Force ones are they're really cool. All right. Anyway, yeah. Do we want to hit this as news or just like dive right into the?
Yeah, just dive.
Okay, so AMG announced a new Star Wars game called Shatterpoint.
They did what now?
Uh, Apparently, the name, according to our resident expert on everything random Star Wars knowledge, Evan, apparently it is a reference to a force power in an obscure EU novel about Mace Windu. So anyway, that's where the name comes from. But without getting too far into it, because we don't actually know a lot about it, except they've shown some visuals and they've generally described it. It's basically Star Wars MCP. Is that a fair characterization?
Yeah.
As far as we can tell, like they haven't, released rules or
Yeah.
anything for it, but
Yeah.
Visually, very much so.
yeah. They said that this was in development like 2.5 to 3 years ago, which would be slightly before they got the Star Wars properties, the other Star Wars minis games from FFG. So yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think about this game generally, I guess, but also what it means for Legion?
I guess I can go. Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm excited about it because I like Star Wars and I like miniature games, and so this kind of scratches both those itches. I think there's times that for me Legion's too long of a game in a tournament type style sometimes, or even just going to play with somebody. Like, I don't know, sometimes I don't want to spend 2.5 hours to 3 hours playing a game. So it'll be nice to have like a Star Wars skirmish game. I don't know. It's hard to. There's so many like false rumors and different stuff going around that it's hard to like track what's real. Like, they said that terrain made for Shatterpoint would be also used for Legion, but that doesn't make any sense because of scale. So like, those miniatures are much bigger. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know any of the plans. They look cool. They look super cool.
They do. The miniatures look really cool.
Yeah, I think I get it. I wish that they had done something like 40K and Kill Team, where Kill Team,
Yeah.
it's this, you can use all those and like Shadespire and all that stuff, right? For fantasy, you can use all those miniatures in the regular game. That's all back and forth. I really wish they did that. I understand why they didn't, especially if they were working on it before they got the rest of the properties. I think that makes sense. Yeah, and then as far as my view on what it means for Legion, like I know a lot of people are really worried, and I understand. I think people are worried because we had an episode on this weeks ago about all the stuff that's hasn't been going right with Legion, and you could, well, they're focused on their new Star Wars game, right? And I think the two are completely separate. I don't think the mistakes are because they're focused on the new game. I think they're mistakes, and the new game is something that they're putting out. And I don't know. The downside for Legion is I think we may see a slowdown in delivery for Legion just because maybe it depends, right? If they can get in more people working there so that their focus isn't divided amongst all these games, adding another game is going to divide the focus even more at their studio, right? They're already 4 games. This will be their fifth title, and 2 of them, Legion and and MCP, are 2 of the top selling miniature games in the world. So if this one does that same thing, which it's likely it will, if it's built on MCP's backbone and with Star Wars, like, yeah, it's gonna, MCP is awesome game. So it makes sense. Like, yeah. So I'm a little worried, but nothing like, nothing. And I don't think the sky's falling. I just think it's just, yeah, just another game.
I'm mostly like, because like we've only seen some minis and stuff, but I've was asked about this at a Age of Sigmar tournament on the weekend, and I was basically said where I'm interested. I'm at the point where I'm very interested to learn more about this. I'm very open minded to it. One thing I am excited to hopefully see in this new game is like force powers looking super cool, because they're relatively bland in Legion just because of gaming and mechanics. But if they apply like how they do MCP abilities and stuff, which is like a lot of like very unique, very powerful abilities, we could easily see like the force users in Shatterpoint have a lot of very unique powers that they can use a lot of, and like have force points or whatever. I'm also interested. The minis, besides being a different scale, which is unfortunate, they're also looking like they're taking the like um, cartoon versions of all the characters rather than the like real life versions, which is just sort of a like if they were like basically the same quote unquote miniatures but a different scale, that would feel extra bad. But at least like Dooku looks like cartoon Dooku, which is super cool because it's a different sort of um, recreation of the same character. So just adds a little extra, or helps make buying sort of multiple minis of the same character a little less sour, because at least you're getting like very different interpretations of same characters and stuff.
Yeah, I think I agree that like, is this the end for Legion? Are they going to replace Legion with this? I think that whole conversation is like completely unfounded hyperbole.
Yeah.
I do think optically it's just the timing is super awkward, just because we, like you said, Jay, we just got over talking about all the various issues with the Battle Force release and all that, which, as far as we can tell, is like the first like full AMG release for Legion. And also just again optically, the era that they chose, which I think is great because I love this era, is the Clone Wars era. And their Legion releases are very focused recently on the Galactic Civil War era, which makes sense for the media. This is, again, I think another thing that like in practical terms is completely unrelated, but just optically looks a little awkward because, you have Clone Wars players and Legion being like, man, wouldn't it be great if we had more Republic characters? Wouldn't it be great if we had more, like Jango Fett and stuff like that? And then, this new Shatterpoint game is getting all of these characters, like to the extent that we're even getting like Barriss and Luminara, who are like, like quite beyond the, those are characters from the Clone Wars TV show, which is great. Like they're awesome characters. And I'll be super interested to see how Shatterpoint seems very, as you said, Tim, very force user focused, which I guess makes sense for a scale like that because you can kind of zero in more on like the concept of duels between characters, which is not, Legion is an army scale game, so it's not as big of a thing for that. But yeah, I am cautiously optimistic. It looks cool. It looks like it will be a very fun game.
Yeah.
I will probably buy it. We'll see if I can only have so many mistresses. But yeah, I do think my biggest thing is simply that it just feels like a missed opportunity to not make it like Kill Team in 40K. Because even from like a revenue perspective, the reason that GW does it that way is because you have like mutually supportive revenue streams. I've seen people be like, well, they had to make it a different scale and different models because otherwise people would just use the Legion models for Shatterpoint, not buy anything. And it's like, that's not, at least based on my experience with the Kill Team in 40K, that's not how it actually ends up working in practice. Like you play, say you play Orcs in 40K and you see the Kill Team come out.
Yeah.
First of all, you have to buy the rules, which they could still make a thing for this. They could sell the cards, right?
Yeah.
Like, but so even if you set that aside, I've got an Orc army in 40K and I'm like, hey, I could play Kill Team. I already have the Orcs. This looks really fun. You get into Kill Team, you're like, you know what? I really need some more commandos because that's like a big thing in Kill Team. I don't have a lot of those. I'm going to go buy a box of commandos. And then you're playing Kill Team and you're like, man, this other faction in Kill Team, Custodes, whatever. I played against them the other day. They seem really cool. I only need to get like 4 models. What's the harm in that? I'm going to buy like 4 models. You get your 4 Custodes models and then you're like, man, these Custodes models are really cool. How many would I need to add so that I could play Custodes in 40K? And then you go buy some more Custodes models and you play them in 40K. And like suddenly Kill Team has got you to buy into a completely different
Yeah.
40k faction that you would never have got into before.
That actually happened to Evan. We were playing Kill Team, and I was playing Orcs, and he wanted to do, what is it, the Gene Stealer
cults.
Gene Stealer cults.
Yeah.
And so he just bought a bunch of 40k boxes and then started playing them. He's like, oh, I really like this, and then bought a ton more of those, right? So yeah, that's exactly the reason. And I think the problem is, like, let's lay it out from a business perspective, is that if they really truly started this when they only had MCP, their goal was never to do that. Their goal was to make an MCP version for Star Wars. And so that's what they were doing. And by the time, I would guess by the time they got Legion, they were probably too deep in the molds and everything, that changing sizes was going to be difficult.
Right.
But
I mean, that's probably the reason. Yeah. It does seem like a missed opportunity if, depending on where they were in their development cycle when they got Legion. Like it could have also been like, wow, we got Legion, let's integrate these two with each other. Like, we have no idea where the development cycle was.
In reality, if we wanted to blame someone, like if anyone should be held to blame, it's Asmodee, because if corporate knew all this was going on, right, and we're going to give all the miniatures to AMG so we have a miniatures house, well, then you think you would give them a heads up, but like, hey, if you're working on this Star Wars game, just so you know, we're going to give you all the miniature games. Oh, excuse me. We're going to give you all the miniature games, so that, if you want to work that in with these other ones, that's going to be a thing. So, as much as everybody wants to make AMG the boogeyman for all their problems, I just don't think this is founded in this, in this particular situation,
Yeah. And
there's also the Lucas film of it all, which is like, especially if they want to focus on the Clone Wars era, a lot of that deep roster is only in the animated shows.
Yeah.
Which getting that, like, because Legion is sort of
it's supposed to be a more realistic aesthetic. Yeah.
So that would be even more development time on miniatures if you have to also pass like the first like real life concept of, like Barris. I don't think has right. So that's a character that bringing to a different interpretation of miniatures is a lot easier than trying to, like, just from the Lucasfilm side. I'm sure. I don't know that for sure, but
I mean, the Pikes in Legion are the Clone Wars animated version of Pikes instead of the Book of Boba Fett, like, film version of Pikes.
That's true.
That's true.
So I don't think that part would be that bad. I think it's probably just a development cycle thing, like you said, Jay. Which it is what it is. And I'm not personally worried about Legion. This clearly represents a very different like itch. Scratches a different itch than Legion does. Legion is very competitive focused. It's very like strategic on an army level. If this is more like an MCP, it's going to be more like a quick character highlight type game.
A skirmish like X-Wing or MCP.
Right.
It falls in, which can be competitive, just different kind of competitive than Legion.
Right. It's a different itch.
Yeah.
So, I don't foresee, to the extent that people buy into this, I think they're probably going to be, and they're already Legion players. I don't think that means they're going to like stop playing Legion or whatever.
No, I'll tell you. Okay. I think I'm probably a perfect candidate for this, because as soon as I saw this, I was like, Evan and I were talking about it, and I'm like, oh, I can bring like 4 or 5 miniatures and get a game of more Legion miniatures in between like playing Legion. Like, yeah, I'm in. Like, you know what I mean? We got a like 3-hour break or something, or we're waiting for something to happen. Oh, let's just play a quick game of Shatterpoint. Like, that'll literally take like 70 minutes. I mean, and all I have to bring is like 5 more miniatures with me. Like, yeah, I'm in.
Yep. Yeah, judging for a day or something on a multiple heat day. Yeah, totally. Yeah, and Legion sells too well. Like, they're not gonna just be like, I mean, Asmodee would like skin them. They were like,
there's no way
we're trying to replace Legion with this.
And because it's not a replacement. right?
It's not. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll be honest with everybody at home. I went back and forth. When I first saw it, I did kind of go, oh, that's not great for Legion. But then I started thinking about it, I'm like, oh no, I don't think this affects Legion at all. And I think we're all just kind of emotionally raw right now with all the like rough changeover they've had. But I will say that Mando and IG-88, the IG-11 IG-88, which was the releases after the swoops and the battle forces, were perfectly fine.
Yep.
And I think that they're moving into a new thing where they're going to force you to buy card packs, which I'm actually all right with, because
I have so many upgrade cards.
yeah, I was actually thinking about this.
Yep.
I was upset about it at first, but then I thought about it, because I was like, okay, if I'm a new player and I bought a battle force, all right, and I buy IG 11 or 88, if the true plan is to put out more card packs where I could just buy a card pack and get the upgrades for them instead of having to go back and buy like a core set and like this unit and this unit that don't mean anything to me, I'm all for that. Like, to get those same cards through a card pack, why not?
Yeah, and actually, did we talk about the fact that they released a statement basically saying that they're gonna do reprints and stuff to like fix that they're aware of the Battle Force issues, and
They weren't very specific on what they were doing.
it was
but they
it
were
was
gonna
pretty
do something.
ambiguous, but
Yeah.
it was the general tone of it was like, we recognize that there's a quality control problem with this Battle Force release. We're taking it seriously. We're gonna go back and do some print runs, and we're gonna solve this basically.
Like,
So, which is great.
great, little late, but great.
Yeah, I mean, it's a
I
better
guess
late
better
than never
late-
situation for me.
I guess. I mean, there's a line with lateness.
There is, yes. It's
That's-
you can't show up like 3 hours late to your wedding, right? That's not a better late than never situation.
Yeah, I mean, you can't show up like a month and a half after we already know there's problems,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we've been losing our minds and be like,
Right.
no, we know there's problems. Yeah, we all know there's problems, dog. Like,
Right. Yeah.
I-
You're right.
Yeah,
There is a line.
I'm hopeful that, I mean, with listen, there was a small error on Boba Fett. It did not affect the game. In fact, I think it's more of a them problem than an us problem, with what they printed on the plastic. But I mean, overall, I think maybe I want to see if they're going to do these card packs. That's the real test, right? Because if they're not, then all right, we're getting less in these boxes for paying more. But if they are going to print it, then yeah, I don't have a problem. Just grab a card pack,
Yeah. Agree.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of looking forward to it. I want to see what it is. I like the idea. Marvel
The-
Crisis Protocol is a good game.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And honestly, like as a person that enjoys, as a second, as a side piece, if you will, like skirmish style games, I really like Shadespire until it became like a subscription service, basically.
Yeah.
As a person that enjoys that scale, and I like, don't get me wrong, I love the Marvel movies, but I've never been like so into it that like, but as somebody that really likes Star Wars, like these miniatures look great. I would totally try this. It could never replace Legion for me as like a competitive passion, so to speak. I don't think, we'll see it, I guess, but
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that it
Coexist like X-Wing.
right. Exactly.
Like, I
Yeah.
think there's a number of us. I don't anymore, but like, I know Bushman and Evan still play X-Wing and have played, like, when we have big tournament weekends, they're in the first heat for Legion and then the second heat for X-Wing on the next day, and I think that's where I think this is going to fit in too, is you play Legion day 1 and day 2 you play Shatterpoint, you see where you get in both tournaments, and then make a decision on if you made the finals for one and not the other, then you're like, okay, I'm gonna go play that one.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't. I mean, I'm okay by all this. It really doesn't scare me.
Yeah, cautiously optimistic is how I describe
Yeah.
how I feel about it.
Excited to learn more.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of,
Oh, yeah. Let's do it.
should we transition to Invader?
Let's do it.
Yeah,
What
I
do you-
guess.
Sorry, Jay. There's an interesting discussion point for everyone at the end of this, which is the
Yes.
Blizzard Force topic that we teased earlier. But let's start with you, Tim.
Yay! So, as we learned on cast last time I was on, I was a little bit cheating. So my Invader League, just a tiny little bit. So my Invader League elims list does not have Lando in it because he just doesn't cut the cheese without, cutting through the rules a little bit. Anyway,
Cut the cheese. Is that I think you're maybe misusing that.
probably. I was
Cut the
trying-
mustard.
Cut the mustard, not cut the cheese. Cut
Cutting the cheese
yeah.
is.
I was
I
trying
mean,
to think of
everybody
the-
cuts the cheese,
Yeah.
Simbo.
Yeah.
I'm
I
sure Lando does too.
not
I-
girls.
That's
Not-
true.
Yeah.
I was thinking of the segue before I got the first saying.
Okay. Anyway, continue.
Anyway, so my list comes to because I am like that. I put a Pike Capo in instead of Lando, the Vigilance. So it's Rebel Officer with a Vigilance portable scanner, Pike Capo with Vigilance, 3 Rebel Troopers, DLT, Captain, Situational Awareness, 2 Pike Syndicate soldiers with their rifle and the Capo, 2 snipers, Fleet Troopers with a medical droid, and then Boba Fett, who, as Jay says, is absolutely terrible, with tenacity, up close and personal, and recon intel. So that does leave me with a 18-point bid, which is a huge change. I was running a 1 or 2 point bid for
That
Round
is a
robin.
crazy bid.
I mean, this list has been a little bit weird in that, and this is part of the reason like I've played around with it a lot, is that like I often had like no bid and felt like I was missing a couple like upgrades I wanted, or like a 40-point. It's like, or I have like right, like I had a weird like activation thing, so I solved that by just dropping the sniper and going up the core. So now it's 6 core and 2 special forces instead of 5 and 3. But also the big bid is to help with our next topic, which is dealing with Blizzard Force, because a lot of those lists do not outbid me anymore, which is nice. So yeah, so I'm in my bracket, I have to win 3 games to get to the not international side of things, and I've won 2 of those games so far, and my next one is scheduled for Thursday. So by
Nice.
Friday, I'll
Congratulations.
know. Yeah, hooray! And my next game is 9 activations: Vader, Din, 3 Dews, and 3 Snows. So basically, I got dewback missiles flying because he has uplink on one of them and new ways.
He has
so
Vader, Din, and 3. Say that again.
Vader, I think it's operative, but I'm not sure about that.
Uh-huh.
Din with spear,
Uh-huh.
and then 3 dewbacks. And
Can
then,
he afford anything else in that list?
Oh, and then he has an officer, 3 Snows, and I think one of the Snows is a flamethrower. So it's gonna be
Yeah. Don't get in melee range, I guess.
Yeah,
Well,
I think
which
it's pretty
is-
clear what that list wants to
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
Yeah. but also don't get in melee range of dewbacks that are going to triple move, activating their tenacity and hitting you in the face. So it's going to be, we'll see what kind of kiting I can do to, because if I could take a dewback down before it gets to my
Yeah,
lines,
I mean, just
that'll-
shoot him.
Yeah, because I'm at
Yeah.
11 activations,
gotta-
he's at 9.
Are you? It's on Hoth, right?
It's on Hoth, which is
Okay, that's good for you.
Oh yeah.
I just played on Hoth, which I'll talk about.
Just
but
shoot them. You'll be shoot her.
That's-
You'll be
that's-
fine.
that's a good plan on Hoth. I'll say that
Yeah.
much. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, anyway, that's where I'm at. But yeah, basically, game plan is just shoot them and also leverage the activation gap to hopefully let me shoot them even more. So yeah. And over to you, Kyle.
And over
Yeah.
to you, Kyle.
So I am running Blizzard Force. I've definitely talked about this list on previous casts, but it is basically an officer with improv, Vader with choke, push, and tenacity. So one training slot blank. Honestly, I could even cut tenacity. I wouldn't feel that bad about it. 2 snows, one of which has a medic. 2 of the storm HRUs with the RT97 and the DLT, and then 4 speeder bikes. And I think that's 787. And it's one of those things like 13 has been enough for me. Apparently, it would not be enough if we had faced each other. But I could just like cut the medic, and I wouldn't feel that bad about it. And that would be a. Well, I'm sorry. The officer also has binocs, which is another 8 points of luxury upgrades, basically. So I could cut the medic and the binocs and not feel that bad about it, and that would be a 40-point bid.
Yep.
Whoa.
I don't think that I
You
need
won't.
to do that.
I think you should, just to like dab on everyone.
I mean, look,
40
I think
point
that
bid.
would be totally unnecessary, but
But hilarious.
it would be kind of funny.
We're back to the days of the heyday of triple stabs.
Kyle, the only way we're going to recognize that this is a problem is if we start doing things like that to make it everyone realize how big of a problem it is.
Well, and people have been like, well, just increase storm HRUs, which is fair. They're grossly, I cannot think of a time in Legion history when a unit to me has been both at first glance and upon further review so grossly undercosted. Like I could think you could make them 12 more points, 12 to 16 more points, and you would still take them.
Yep.
And then essentially you just run the same list and you cut the medic, and you
Yep.
still have like a 13 to 15 point bid. So I don't know.
Good God.
We'll get to the Blizzard Force discussion in a second. I am done with my 3 games. I won my 3 games. The last by the slimmest of possible hairs. So my last game was against Babette, who won last season's Invader League. He was ranked ahead of me, number 1 on ELO. And he also was my only round robin loss. We were in the same round robin group. And so we were destined to face each other in the same quadrant of the bracket. So for those that don't know how the elim structure works for Invader, basically there's like you do your round robin group, and then the top 2 people from each group advance to like a regional elims, and then in that regional elims you get 4 people from each region. So the regions are essentially North America East, North America West, so East Coast, West Coast, and then international, which is Europe and Asia lumped together basically, and Australia. And 4 people from each of those advance.
It's that's
No?
right. Sorry. Nope. That's right. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yep. Sorry.
I was just looking at it today because I was trying to
Yep.
see who else had already like played all their games in advance, and the only other person so far is Snyder from NA West. So,
yeah.
But they only had to play 2 games because that's the inferior coast, so that doesn't count.
That's where I played last year.
Yeah. Anyway, I digress. So essentially, 1 person from each quadrant of the bracket makes it, and Babette and I got shoved into the same quadrant. So we're like, all right, well, I guess this is going to be rematch, and one of us is going to make it to whatever they call it, grand finals, and one of us is not. So it was a incredibly close game. I made some serious mistakes on deployment. Babette actually made one too, which I did not capitalize as much on as I should have. Basically, we were on disarray. The turn 0, I was blue, which was critical. The flop was hostage and bombing run in the first 2 slots, and then hemmed in the last slot. So I was like, well, I guess we both know how this is going to go, because like I could not force hemmed in, and then he could veto both bombing run and hostage. So that's what he did. He vetoed bombing run and hostage. We ended up on payload disarray. And basically I put 3 of my 4 bikes in one of my disarray zones, and then the rest of my army in the opposite corner. He put 1 sacrifice stormtrooper unit basically in his opposite corner, and then the entire rest of his army in the zone that was like opposite my bike deployment. And after we finished deployment, I'm looking at the deployment, and I realized that he has Rule with Respect, which is one of the new Bubba cards, the 3-pip in his deck. And I'm looking at like the distance my bikes are from all his stuff and how he's like dropped a mortar, within range for one of my bikes. And I'm like, I had that moment like Ralph from Simpsons where I'm like, I'm in danger. um, but luckily, because Hoth is what it is, and the map it has a lot of terrain on it, but they're all like super low rolling hills of snowdrifts, basically. So you playing against dewbacks on them, Timbo, that should be good for you.
Yeah,
there's not really any like there's a handful of tall like height 1 line of sight blockers, but most of the line of sight blockers are like exactly the height of a silhouette, maybe a little bit more. So I was able to drop my officer so that I could see both of his strike teams. So I played Overwhelming Barrage first turn. I got kind of a rough rollout on it. The first rollout was 4 blanks on the black dice. Luckily, I had an aim, so I rolled that into 2 hits, and then I killed the strike team. And then the second one just got 2 hits, and he rolled a save. So I only ended up killing one of the 2 strike teams on the Overwhelming Barrage.
The horror.
Yeah, the card is so dumb. I didn't like. I almost felt kind of ashamed to do it, and then the rollout happened, and one of the strike teams survived, and I was like, all right, whatever, that's fine. This card is dumb. Anyway, so, and then he proceeded to start massacring my bikes with Rule with Respect while I tried to pull them from the back. He killed a full bike unit and then an additional bike model doing that. So I lost 3 bikes on the first turn, 3 bike models. And then I lost a second bike unit, one of my 1-man bike units after that first turn on the first activation of turn 2 because he played Boba's Rocket to go after that bike. However, on that turn, I was able to use my other 2 bikes to kind of loop back around and take shots at Boba where he was, like in the open. And then I was also able to move up my HRUs, my storms, and do like a cohesion thing where I could like get within range with the unit leader and then drop the heavies on one of the slopes behind him so they could see over the slope to Boba. And then I actually did 4 wounds on Boba in return for losing that bike. So that was decent. But then it was like this weird situation where we were on disarray payload. And he realized that neither of us was going to score our payloads like 2 turns earlier than I did. So he just kind of veered his off and started using it as mobile heavy cover. Whereas I like continued trying to push mine, which meant that I was like exposing units for no reason in the process. Oh, I also killed that sacrificial storm that he put in his other deployment zone. So at this point, I had lost 2 bike units, and I think that's it so far. And then I also ended up sacrificing a snowtrooper unit to tie down Din for 2 turns, which worked out. My naked snow.
Good deal.
Yeah. So I had lost 2 speeder bikes and the snowtrooper unit, and then he had lost 2 strikes and the storm. And then we got to a point basically where Vader was able to do the Vader's Might thing into an activated shore unit to like, engage them from 20 inches away. And at this point, I should have recognized that like neither of us was going to score. If I killed that shore unit with Vader, without Vader dying, which was reasonably likely because Vader was at full health, Boba was at 4 wounds, so he wasn't going to be able to like kick me to death or anything. If I kill that shore unit, I'm up on points. All I got to do is not die with Vader and kill the shore unit. Vader can handle that task by himself. I should have just run away with the rest of my army, but I tried to score the payload basically, and I ended up losing a bunch more units. I lost another bike unit. I lost the snow medic unit, and I lost the storm HRU. So like and then he moved Boba back up to deal some of this damage. On the last turn, this shore unit was still alive because Vader like had like a 3-hit swing on one of his lightsaber deals. I played Implacable on the last turn. I went first with my remaining Storm HRU, which was able to like get 1 hit through on Boba and kill him. And then Vader proceeded to finish off with Implacable, finish off the shore, kill his officer, and then after drawing the token again, kill the strike team with force choke, which turned out to be enough to put me over on points. So it was definitely a like Vader just putting the game on his back at the 11th hour kind of situation to kill 3 units on one turn. In addition to managing to finish off Boba Fett with that 1 wound. So it was definitely like it was very close. You know, both I've played Boba twice now, and it's been, you know, he's very good, obviously. So I don't feel like
Empire
I should have pulled that
Boba,
out.
right?
Yes, sorry, Empire Boba. He was
Yeah.
running. I guess I
Empire
didn't actually
Boba's
say
really
what he was
good.
running. He was running Boba Din double bounty with pikes. So he had Boba, he had Din, he had pikes, he had shores
Oh
and
god,
snipers and a mortar. So
that is so much.
it's a lot of things. It's 11 activations. And I realized too late that like I thought maybe I could sort of outshoot him if I could get some flanking shots off on the pikes, but he had removed 2 bikes and Din was like up in my flank, and that was just not going to happen. So I just needed Vader to clutch it and run away with everything else. And instead I didn't run away with everything else, and then Vader still clutched it anyway. So
If you can pull off a like turn 1 or 2 rule with respect with Boba into a rocket, it's often enough to like turn the gunfight. Like no, like not
Yeah.
no, kind of ignoring whatever the
Yeah.
guns. Like as long as the gun lines are somewhat equal, or even if like the Boba players at like like a sort of activation of guns disadvantage, if you can get a couple extra black dice in plus a Boba rocket in, usually that will turn the gunline battle towards you, towards Boba.
Yep. Yeah, it was a nasty combo. I think I was a little lucky in how I was able to set up shots on Boba after that rocket. Because he kind of like chased my bike a little bit. You know, and then those 4 wounds kind of parlayed into that last minute kill that got me up on points. So yeah, I definitely feel like I got lucky a little bit, and Vader is ridiculous. That's all I have to say about that.
Yep.
And for those playing on Hoth, you're not going to be able to hide stuff. So especially not stuff that is taller than a silhouette. The speeder bike, a dewback, it's not going to be able to hide anywhere. So factor that in through calculus.
And especially even if you do find a hiding spot, because it's all rolling hills, like minis can get higher than you'd expect, and they can shoot down over things.
Yep.
So it's it's a lot.
There's going to be a lot of shots that happen where if you're playing from top down, you're like, I thought that was going to be okay, and then you go on the table and you're like, oh nope, this is not a map that you can play top down.
Yeah.
So yeah, should we parlay that into a countering Blizzard Force topic? Because I think you have some. Did you play this tournament, Jay, or you were just at it / aware of it?
I was aware of it,
Okay.
yeah, but I've played against Blizzard Force, so yeah. So I guess parlaying into it, we coupled actually 2 different tournaments. People reached out to me to tell me how good, if not broken, I hate using that word, but good / broken Blizzard Forces, and how it was taking average players and like making them be able to like basically table other players. And so, you know, I thought it would be good for us to talk about it, talk about how you can counter it, talk about the weakness of Blizzard Force in general. But I think the real problem, you have one version of Blizzard Force that's good, and you're a good player, so that's going to be good. But there's also other variations of Blizzard Force that are also good, and it's just like it's the one battle force that I could think of like 3 or 4 different variations where I just wouldn't want to face any of them and just be like, oh, that sounds miserable. But yeah, so I guess I thought it would be a good idea for us to kind of talk about it and see how we can counter it. Give us your secrets, Kyle. Tell us how to beat you.
Yeah, so I mean, the short version is that I think I've said this before, but Blizzard Force is kind of like a giant scalpel. It's got a really targeted, focused roundhouse kick.
Mm.
But once, like, if you can kind of weather that and then start killing stuff, it kind of takes the wind out of its sails pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Because all of the stuff that it relies on, speeder bikes, the Storm HRUs specifically, like, they're fragile. Speeder bikes are straight up fragile. They've got white saves. Once you lose that first model, their offense just totally plummets. So you really only need to do 3 wounds to a speeder bike unit to at least neuter its offensive potential. Clearly, its scoring potential is another matter. But a speeder bike throwing 3 dice with a rainbow, like that's going to bounce off heavy cover. That's going to bounce off dodges. That's probably going to bounce off like a suppression token cover. So that's a very different pool than the 6 dice pool that they're throwing with 2 bikes. So if you can even remove like a speeder bike model from each unit, clearly you want to try and finish off activations when you can, depending on what's going on. But you can kind of declaw that cat, being the speeder bikes, pretty quickly once you start dropping models.
Speeder bikes are one of the few units in this game that not splitting fire with units, but like, getting a model down, moving on to a different unit, especially like when you're trying to weather that storm, like scoring later in the game, activation is usually more important, but like turn 1 or 2 or whatever, trying to drop a model out of as many speeder bike units as you can quickly, really, it's one of the few times that advocating for that is not the wrong thing.
Yeah, like clearly you have to figure out what the objective is and stuff. Like if it's bombing run and they're carrying bombs, clearly you want to drop the whole unit or something like that. But yeah,
I mean, if it's bombing run, they're carrying bombs, you probably want to try to scope the leaders.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
but which shouldn't be that possible against a good player, because those are big models and you have a lot of range with cohesion. But anyway, yeah, it's, if you can kind of weather that punch and hit back against the speeder bikes specifically, that goes a long way towards taking the teeth out of it. The Storm HRUs also, their big quote unquote defense is simply that they can do so much of their damage at range 4.
Yeah.
And most units kind of need to get to at least range 3 to be like properly deadly. But they're super vulnerable to things like snipers, just run-of-the-mill snipers, but also specifically like Iden. If Iden can get a pulse scan shot into him, she's picking up 2 models on that. Then the next hit from Dell or whatever else is going to remove a heavy model. Like, and that's there's only 2 of those. There's only 2 Storm HRUs, so you've just very easily essentially eliminated one of them. Because even if it's down to just like the RT97, that's not a very good dice pool. That's 4 dice, so whatever, 3 of which are white dice. So like once you can do 3 wounds to a Storm HRU, and at the end of the day they're just stormtroopers, they don't have surges or dodges or any kind of special defensive tech. If you can do 3 wounds to a Storm HRU, you're also essentially, it's the same concept as killing a speeder bike. Like, you've really cut into their offensive potential by doing that. So don't be afraid to shoot them. Now, of course, not to be lost in all this is if they're running the one that I'm running, which is the Vader version. Hopefully you're not so focused on those things that you forget that Vader exists, because killing a handful of speeder bikes and a Storm HRU unit isn't going to do you any good if Vader gets in your lines with relatively full health. If you don't have a Force user. If you have a Force user or a lot of melee units or whatever, that would be a different conversation. But like, Vader can, like, if you don't have a Force user, Vader can solo your army.
Yep. Yeah.
Pretty easily. By himself. So just don't lose sight of that. Like, if you get a chance to take open-ish shots on Vader, especially if he doesn't have dodges, take him.
I mean, or even tough shots, because even getting 2 or 3 wounds into Vader before he gets to you is
That's important.
a huge difference.
Yep. Yeah. So far, I've lost one game as Blizzard Force, which is that round robin game against Babette, and in that one he did 4 wounds to Vader on the first turn with a stat, and that like drastically changed how I was able to approach that game. So yeah, if you can pull something like that, that makes a big difference. I actually faced a Blizzard Force at Nova Open with Ide and Boba, and it was a similar setup, and I did 3 wounds to Vader on the first turn with Inferno Squad. Now Inferno Squad died on that turn to the bikes. But at the end of the day, it kind of turned out to be worth it, because you've got like a close to half health Vader, and he was trying to get in with him, and like he 4 to 5 wound Vader drops surprisingly quickly when he's focused. So
and those bikes are probably going to kill something.
Yeah.
Right. That's one of the other realities of Blizzard Force, is like weathering the punch generally doesn't mean keeping everything alive.
Right.
It's about making sure that your key things are alive, because the bikes are fast. They're going to try and pick a target. And part of the key is making sure that, one, you have heavy cover with everything, because if they start shooting in the open, that things go real bad real quick, which is sometimes often hard against bikes because they move quick.
Right.
And also trying to, keep strike teams back, keep, officers or other like very key support pieces very well hidden, and because anything exposed, speeder bikes can pick up if they want to.
Yeah, and there are a couple lists that actually can weather that punch without losing something. Excuse me. The 2 that I'm specifically thinking of are Anakin Padme Pikes.
Yep.
Because you have so much dodge sharing, and a significant portion of those dodges are from Exemplar, so you can kind of apply them to whichever unit needs them. So that's one.
What does that list look like? Because I know we've mentioned it before. Obviously, Anakin and Padme, but
there's a couple different variations of it. There's like the 10 activation version, which is like the kind that Dash's Mike is running. And that is you can actually just look it up. He was in the Nova top 8.
Don't tell me to look it up.
Well, no, I'm just saying I'm not going to get it right from memory.
Oh,
so
all right.
But I will essentially, it's Anakin, Padme. He had 2 arc strikes. He's running something similar for Invader Elims also. 3 clone troopers, some of which had heavies. I think he's got Boyle in the Invader list, because that card was spoiled, so that's legal for Invader for guardianing high velocity, basically. And then a Pike Capo, and then 2 Pikes with just the disruptor, not the personnel. And that allows you to get to 10.
Okay.
Personally, if I were to do it, I would do the 9 activation version, where you cut one of the arc strikes and then just beef up all your core units. In that list, I like to have some more suppression mitigation on the core, because one of Republic's problems is that they're very reliant on phase 1s, which lose an action at 1 suppression. So I'd like, for Adepticon, I ran a phase 2, and then I ran one of them with a captain. If I were to slot the pikes in there, that's 2 more units that have some form of suppression mitigation in the form of courage too. So basically I would beef up the core units. I'd throw a couple of copies of Overwatch on them, which getting captains and or converting at least one of them to phase 2 allows you to do. And then you're like even further kind of expanding your anti-Blizzard Force tech, because bikes are range 3. So you've got a standby or 2 that you can share with a couple Overwatch units, and suddenly like that's a very prickly hedgehog for speeder bikes to try and get into. So yeah, that's what I would do. That's the list, honestly, the single list that probably scares me the most with Blizzard Force. It's also, got Anakin. So you can't just die with Vader, or if he gets murdered by Anakin, which is kind of ironic, but yeah. And then Shadow Collective Maul with pikes, because there's so much dodge generation in that list, and I think the primary weakness of Blizzard Force, besides there's actually three. There's one we haven't got to yet. So we talked about the fact that your hard hitting stuff is fragile. The second one is that there's no high velocity in the list.
Yep.
So like if your opponent has a lot of dodge generation, particularly with pikes, like you're going to need to kind of burn through the dodges to do damage.
Mhm.
Now, granted, the bikes can often get flanking shots, which helps, but still, like there's no way to just ignore the dodges like you could with the high velocity spam list. So that's weakness number two. And then the third one is just that while it is exceptionally good when you're using its battle deck, it is really not very good at all when you're not. It's decent at quite a lot of the other objectives. It's not quite the same when you're like forcing your opponent to choose between bombing run and breakthrough and hostage. But it's really the deployments that make the big difference for Blizzard Force. Bikes are not good when they're going from short edge to short edge. They want to be able to flank stuff. So, we've kind of established that Blizzard Force could probably bid up to like 40 points if it wanted to. But if you can manage to outbid Blizzard Force, and maybe bidding like 15 to 18 is going to be enough to do that most of the time, then that's also going to be pretty big. Because if you can use those short edge to short edge deployments, if you can use those an objective deck that isn't like totally stacked for bikes and Vader, then you're gonna have a much better shot. So
Yep. And I mean, this is also a little bit besides all that, but the overall main barrage, like part of the dealing with the first blow is like making like that thing's gonna go off and it's gonna hit something, but you got to make sure you like if you have strike teams that they're not gonna be able to see both models, and if you have and again like officers and stuff, and also even like make sure things can't get scoped, sort of typical sort of cohesion stuff, right? But you got to be doubly careful against Blizzard Force because they will punish like deployment cohesion mistakes, which often like that's often the most common place you see like cohesion mistakes because people are just trying to get models on the table or whatever.
Yeah.
So when you're especially when you're deploying against Blizzard Force or really any army that has like a bombardment card, you gotta make sure that you don't have like a heavy weapon sticking out or strike teams that are you can see both models or a really juicy like 4-wound officer out in the middle of nowhere.
So.
Yeah, know what is actually on that card because it is not like the other bombards. It is 4 black dice that surge regardless of who's firing it, even if it's Vader or somebody else, because the surge is printed on the card. And most importantly, it has blast, like just printed on the card. So it doesn't matter what the sharpshooter value of the attacker is, if they have any or not. Does not matter. It is like getting hit by Leia or Kraken. Those are the only bombard users I think that have sharpshooter too. So because that is blast right there on the card. So make sure you know what it does when you deploy your dudes. It also has suppressive. I don't know. That's kind of like clearly it doesn't need suppressive, but that's also the least dangerous thing on that card. So whatever.
Yeah, I mean so one of the games I played, I got that, and then I got hit with a ATST mortar outside. I mean, I was outside of range. It's just like okay, and so I had 4 suppression and like 2 units left or 2 minis left. And I was just like, what? Like this is not okay. So. Even like, I know we've talked a lot about the Vader. Vader is definitely a big part of those lists, and I think he's very good. But I would make an argument there's a list with like General Vice with like the 2 snow troopers with flames, 2 of the heavy response units, 4 speeder bikes, and an ATST.
Yep, that's the thing you can do.
Like, good
I
God.
mean, you have to have an officer, right? Field commander doesn't work.
Right. So you have to have general veers, right? And then you got maximum firepower in there. as well as overwhelming
I-
barrage and
I've
yeah.
I've played a 12 act Blizzard Force, which is like Veers, Pikes, heavy response units, and snows and stuff, and it's nasty in different ways.
Yeah.
But one of those ways is like, oh, turn one, overwhelming barrage. Turn two, maximum firepower.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
two barrage cards or bombardment cards right after each other is pretty interesting.
And then you have the bikes in there too, who
Yeah, and then the
maybe
bikes
they're on,
are
like,
right there.
yeah. Yeah, I talked a lot about Vader. Let's talk about the other versions real quick, because the one thing that you really can't do with Vader, I mean, clearly you drop probably new ways to motivate them for overwhelming barrage, but the one thing you're really not doing with Vader is leveraging those other excellent Blizzard Force command cards.
Yeah.
There's the 3-pip that gives you spur and suppressive, and then there's the 1-pip that prevents your opponent units from removing more than one suppression, and also gives out 2 orders for some reason, which you get a lot more use out of in the non-Vader versions, because you're not replacing any of Vader's ridiculous command cards. So yeah, if you're running the ATSD version, or if you're running like the snow spam version, you're going to get a ton of use out of those 2 cards. And I think in those, the counters are kind of similar. You got to kind of weather the punch and then try and start chipping at the Storm HRUs and chipping at the speeder bikes. It's a little bit harder to like quote chip an ATST.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not easy. It's doable. It's doable. Like, listen, as someone who has played heavies a lot, there's a lot more. Just let's take out critical 1 or critical 2. There's a lot more rolled crits than you think there are. So like, you still have to like be careful, even with, and then you add critical 1 and critical 2. That's like, like I played that rebel with like the veterans. I'm just like, someone rolls a heavy, I'm like, yeah, okay, well, critical gets around armor too, so we're gonna go ahead and fire, and so yeah, I think an ATST and 4 speeder bikes is just, it's so nasty.
Yeah.
On its own, and like you said, in a different way, and it's just like unrelenting firepower for that 1-pip, just to quote that 1-pip. But that's what it is, right? You've got the ATST is just such a powerhouse and can like really hold a board edge on its own. And then you have like speeder bikes coming up on the flank, and then if they try to get in close, you basically murder ball the snow troopers and the HRUs, and so that like if anybody tries to get into close to like an objective, they just get annihilated by those units. It's just, there's so many like I think it's Blizzard Force is the first like utility knife list, I think, of Legion, where I feel like there's so many different options to build out Blizzard Force, and and I think it all centers around those heavy response units. But I think there's so many different options that somebody could be like, "Oh, I'm bringing Blizzard Force," and you're like, "I don't know what that means." Like, okay, that could be. I literally don't know what to be prepared for.
Well, I mean, it's generally what you're saying is like, you got your 2 heavy response, 4 speeder bikes. So you're like, you got six units are all guaranteed, and then you got to have at least 1 other core. But sort of the other 4 to 5 units are all sort of to taste, basically.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yep. It's really fun.
Yeah. I mean, it's what Empire needed, like, I think it overcorrected, but I think it's right. Cause how long were we saying, oh, Empire just doesn't feel great anymore. And now it feels great, but it just way overcorrected in the other way. But I like the idea, like all these battle forces besides Gar, but I like the ideas. Like, I really do. I really like the ideas. And I think that they They had really good potential. I think that because of how good Blizzard Force is, it outshines the other two that I don't think are terrible. They just get Blizzard Force just outshines them, you know. Echo Base, I played the 4 satellite dish, 3 vets, 3 MKs, Leia, you know, I didn't do the Luke one, but I did the Leia officer one, and I was honestly like wrecking house with it, and it was just like, and then I was like, yeah, all right, and then I just moved on, you know, but like that's still a viable thing. It's just it gets overshadowed by some other stuff.
Yeah, I think a huge part of that is like even if Echo Base and Blizzard Force were sort of like equal levels of powerful, inherently moving stuff is a very important part of Legion, and the Echo Base list is very static.
Yeah.
Whereas the Blizzard Force is by its nature very mobile. So like Blizzard Force is just more fun to run in general.
Yeah, and it's more flexible.
And it's more flexible, yeah.
Yeah. But speeder bikes are like so much fun to play. And Vader is so much fun to play. It's just everything about the list. I'm sitting here next to my currently still unassembled 4 units of speeder bikes. And I'm trying to get ready for PAX, which I am now going to.
Yeah, whoop whoop.
Yep. And I'm like, man, I've got like 3 weeks, one of which is Thanksgiving, and I've got to assemble and paint 8 speeder bikes, 8 snow troopers, and sort of figure out how to mishmash my storm heavy HRUs from my existing storm units. And I'm like, man, I really want to play Blizzard Force for PAX, but I don't know. Because I want to play it so much, I might just end up showing up with like half painted models. I really hate to do that, but
just blast one white and say they're in a blizzard. It's good.
I mean, look, I have an airbrush. I'm going to get a significant portion of the painting done with just that. We'll see. You know, I could clearly like my Iden Boba list from Nova is fully painted and ready to go, so I could just end up playing that. But like, I've already done that, you know. So
I've been on the fence about like I'm going to PAX. I've been on the fence about playing. I want to play. I don't know. I want to bring that dumb idiot separatist invasion list. You know, and just
which idiot came up with that? Ooh.
Yeah. I give you credit every time. I say, yeah, Timbo and I came up with this. I mean, I don't know. It's just like the problem I've been having lately is just like every list I want to bring, I'm just like, I don't want to play that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, I should bring this list. And then I'm just like, yeah, I don't want to play that. Like, I've kind of lost the taste for some of these lists that I've been playing. Like, I played that Cassian K2 list for a while, and now I'm over it. Like, I'm over Pikes. I'm just like, I don't know what to do right now. So I'm feeling a little lost as far as lists to play, you know? Like, part of me wants to just bring something, I don't know, crazy.
I've thought about just playing Republic because all my Republic stuff is painted.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's, you know, it's kind of like a who cares tournament.
Yeah.
Like based on how many rounds there probably won't even be like one undefeated person at the end of it. So part of it is like, you know, if there's a tournament to just mess around and have fun and play Republic, this is the one.
That's the one, yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
You're saying Republic isn't your world's faction? What?
I just get done talking about how I think the best counter to Blizzard Force is a Republic list.
Yeah.
No, I mean, the conversation on Republic for me has not really changed.
No.
For 8 months since I played them. And like Pikes are great, don't get me wrong, but fundamentally their weaknesses are the same, which is lack of flexibility over a long form tournament. At some point you're going to get a table that you don't like because you can't ball up and move as a hedgehog towards where you need to be, or you're going to run into a matchup that has an extensive amount of like the same thing that counters Anakin Pikes is the thing that counters Shadow Collective Pikes, which people are teching for. So
Yep.
If you run into a high velocity spam list with Iden and or Boba, or I guess IG88 now, that's not going to be great for you. So
It's the ultimate thing about sort of basically any war game is like if you're teching into something that like not badly, but sort of like if you're sort of middling teching something, if people are teching for the thing that is actually like min maxing it, that middling thing just is going to get blown off the board because
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the same things that work against Shadow Collective Pikes is the same things that work against Anakin Pikes. So, yeah, I don't know, and that's all I have to say about that. All right, you guys got any final thoughts?
No, I think that was good. We did it.
We did it.
We did it. That's my final thought.
good old Blizzard Force, i.e. Winnipeg, Manitoba. The first day it snowed here, it was a blizzard.
Seems about right.
Yep.
Nice. Perfect.
I've been trying to figure out how to like do some kind of conversion with snows to make storm HRUs that look like they're actually like prepared for the weather, and I just can't.
I just can't.
It's too much work. They're just going to be I think they're actually going to be like sand troopers, which is kind of ironic. Because that's one of my storm units is a sand trooper unit from the upgrade pack expansion, because I hate how the core set storms look. And I had like extra upgrade packs lying around, so I just like made a storm unit from the sand troopers, and it looks way better than the normal storms, but maybe a little bit out of place on Hoth.
Wow. That was like one of my Wookiee units at LVO was actually my winter Wookiees that just were replaced with the desert place. So it's like, oh, I got two like sort of sandy colored, oh, it looks like a little sand in their fur, then one that was like gray and had like frosting on there for
Yeah.
made telling them apart really easy.
There you go.
And now I kind of want to bring something ridiculous to packs like Gar Hero Hammer or something. Like bring a like a
Anakin Yoda.
Oh, I was thinking Chewie Yoda R2 Padme.
Chewie, I don't know about R2, but Chewie Yoda.
Yeah.
Chewie
is
Yoda,
legit.
I mean, if you check out the France Nationals article, because that's what won there.
Oh yeah, check that out. Timbo just wrote that one.
Oh, yeah. He didn't put a
We plugged it.
He didn't put an image in for the for the blog. Yes. There's no image.
That's on me.
I'll take
apparently edited that while sleep deprived. Tim, rectify that.
I can do that.
Just called him out on a national platform.
No, that's
he didn't put in an image.
I do edit all the articles, I promise. All right. Well, any final thoughts? Not related to that.
No. Yeah, I guess I'm glad that we got that covered, Something. Yeah. Whatever it was that I was just thinking in my head.
Shatterpoint.
Sure. Yeah. I'm glad we covered that.
I really hope that's a force power that you can use in the game.
That would be good, yeah.
Mace Windu should be a unit and have that as an ability. Otherwise,
he is a unit. There is a model.
There you go. I hope one of his abilities is Shatterpoint. All right.
You're doing great. Everybody's doing great.
Yep.
All right. Let's land this.
Yeah. All right. We are the Notorious Scoundrels. I'm Kyle.
I'm Jay.
I'm Timbo, who's about to go edit an article.
Stay fresh, cheese bags.
Or be fired. Right.